Hello, my name is Adam Baldridge. Today I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Boy Scouts of America, an organization that I'm somewhat familiar with and that I feel that I can impart some knowledge about. Boy Scouts began in 1907 in England, not America, England. They were began by a man named Lord Robert Baden-Powell, a retired admiral in the British Navy. And he felt his calling of his after he was done with his military career was to impart his knowledge and train the youth of his country to become upstanding men like himself, to teach boys patriotism, courage, self-reliance, and kindred values in his own words. Boy Scouts of America began 3 years later by a man named William Boyce, W.D. Boyce, who was a businessman from Chicago on business in London. When he lost his way in the fog on his way home, a young boy approached him and offered to show him the way, of course free of charge, when Mr. Boyce tried to tip him. And he was so taken aback by this and impressed by this show of charity that he took that back to America with him and founded the Boy Scouts of America. And this was a time when the YMCA was beginning, and a couple of other now defunct organizations, and this was in the 1910s, 1920s, when organizations for youth were really getting started, and Boy Scouts was one of the ones that obviously survived. The organization of the Boy Scouts has been modernly cut into three different branches: Cub Scouting, Boy Scouting, and Venture Scouting. Cub Scouting is for the youngest of the boys, age 7 to 10, and it's the largest group of scouts because every Cub Scout doesn't necessarily move on to Boy Scouting. And it's not achievement based like Boy Scouting is, it's more age based. As the boys get older, they go up in rank until they graduate. Boy Scouting, of course, is the flagship group, the one that's been there since the beginning. And it is achievement based, where boys gain rank by doing tasks and achieving ranks. The last one, of course, being Eagle Scout. And then the last one, Venture Scouting, which is sort of a new branch, and it's an appeal by the BSA to a more modern youth culture that maybe not necessarily wants to join traditional Boy Scouts and wear the uniform and go through the structured process that Boy Scouts do. And it's for youth between 14 and 21, and it's also for girls as well if they want to join. And it's more career-based, and it's an open structure. It's more self-paced, and it's sort of maybe an unofficial branch of scouting is for adults. So we call them scouters in the scouting world, and these are for the parents and the leaders of scout troops. And it's just leadership training and leadership seminars set aside for adults to go to on their own, aside from the boys, even though they're there for the boys. So some traditions of the Scouts, we've all seen the tan uniforms and the three-fingered salute. The Scout handshake is done with the left hand because it's closest to the heart. The Scout Oath and the Scout Law are two tenets of Scouting that have been around since the beginning that all Scouts need to learn. And the Scout Oath is, on my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, to obey the Scout Law at all times, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. And the Scout Law is 12 virtues that a Scout should have, and they are: a Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. It's a mouthful, but if you've said it enough times, it comes to you easy. So those are some of the things about Scouts, but what is the purpose of Scouting? Well, there's simply stated, Scouting is about character development, citizenship training, and physical well-being. But above all that is charity and giving, nation and worldwide. Every Scout learns humility through charity, charity itself being a selfless act on its own. And of course, beyond those two main things, Scouts are taught to be self-reliable in urban and rural environments, taught to be unselfish at all times. That's where the helping other people at all times comes. There is also a lot of career preparation and leadership training, and put simply, Boy Scouts teaches young boys how to become good men. And so what kind of impact has Scouting had on the world? What started in Britain and was taken to America is now worldwide. and grown into one of the largest organizations for youth in every country in the world. There are every group that is affiliated with the Boy Scouts of America in other places in the rest of the Western world and the Third World are not necessarily Christian affiliated, and they're not necessarily boys only, but they all do adhere to the main tenets of the Scouting way, which I went over earlier, the Scout Law and the Scout Oath. And Scouting has been a leader in charity almost since its inception. Close to Red Cross numbers. Their Scouting for Food program brings in millions for the needy and the hungry. Not as popular, of course, as the Girl Scouts cookies, but it does do its own. So I would have to say in conclusion that the Boy Scouts is an integral and very historical part of the American story. Their membership is still strong, despite some negative headlines here and there in the last couple of decades. But there's always hope that Scouting will evolve as it has before to meet certain cultural and social changes. And I think their history of youth development and their legacy of charity will stand the test of time. So that's a little bit about the Boy Scouts, and I hope you learned something today. Thank you.